Hi, this is Jankiewicz from Inner Athlete Training, and today we're going to be talking about things to consider when working out in the cold. Yes, I want you working out in the cold. That's the point. All right. Now, this comes up a lot. I've had a lot of clients say, I don't like going out when it's cold. A lot of my friends say the same thing. I just want to stay inside. I want to eat cookies and drink eggnog and stay in front of the fire. I understand the impulse. I totally do. We've had a very warm November, so a lot of people have been out, and that's awesome. But December is encroaching on us, and it is going to get colder. So I highly encourage you to go out, not for long periods of time. I'm not talking about being out and exercising for hours. We're talking about on the coldest days, getting out there for at least 15 minutes to 30 minutes to stimulate your body. And we're going to go into details about how that works. So what are some of the reasons you want to be training out in the cold? I enjoy training out in the cold. I'm out all year round, even in the wintertime, in shorts for the most part. Keep the upper body very well insulated, the head sometimes, but the legs always get exposure. Why? Because when you're outdoors, when it's sunny, even if it's cold, you still need vitamin D, and you're still going to get it from the sun. It's not as abundant in the winter seasons, but it's still there, and you should go out and get it. Now, the same reasons you go out in the summertime too, oxygen. Right? There's just as much oxygen in the wintertime as there is in summer. So those two points alone are beneficial. Get your vitamin D, get your oxygen. But what also happens is when you're out in the cold and you're somewhat scantily clad, maybe you're out in a lighter shirt, maybe you're out in shorts, the body starts shivering. And that shivering elicits a great calorie burning effect. And what happens chemically speaking is you have two types of adipose tissue or fat tissue. And one type is the white tissue, and that's what stores your energy, right? And that's what you burn off when you exercise. But there's also brown. And brown's abundant when we're little babies because we don't have the ability to shiver when we're little kids, right? Little babies. So we produce brown adipose tissue, which generates its own heat. And in generating its own heat, it generates energy. And the reason it does this is because it's very dense in mitochondria. Now, we lose some of that as we get older. We still have remnants of it, but we lose some of it. So what you want to do is when you train outdoors, you shiver and you do what's considered a lot of micro contractions. Contraction is what happens when you do any exercise. If you do lunges, squats, pull-ups, bench press, shoulder press, whenever you're contracting the muscle, you are burning energy. And what happens when you contract the muscle is you release a hormone called irisin. And irisin, they're finding out, is the key factor to this whole shivering thing, right? Because what the irisin does is then it goes into the system through the muscles. So once it's contracted out of the muscles, behave as though they are brown adipose tissue. So it will generate more heat. It'll burn more energy. And they first started doing these experiments in rats, but eventually started doing them in humans and found great benefit. So in a nutshell, what I'm basically saying is you're shivering. All those micro contractions are having the same effect as when you do heavier weights. But because you're doing it at such a high volume and so rapidly, you're generating a lot of energy in the body. And if your goal is fat loss and to bring your weight down, then you want to be out in the cold and you want to be burning more calories. There are some studies that estimate that 15 minutes of training in the cold is equivalent to 1 hour of caloric burn just in a regular temperate climate. So you really get a lot of bang for your buck. So you still get the vitamin D, you still get the oxygen, you still burn a lot more calories than you would if you were out in the summertime. So there's a whole plethora of benefits to you, physiologically speaking, to being outdoors in the wintertime. Again, not for long periods of time. Take your poison in small little dosages. So start, if you're not used to it, go out for 5 minutes, go out for 10 minutes. Eventually you'll be able to be out there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes in shorts, and it may not affect you as much. Now, I know everybody has different thresholds, but regardless of where you start, you can increase your threshold for cold by just going out and doing it. So now if you're in a situation, you're waiting for the Uber driver, you get lost hiking in the woods and you're out in the cold for an extended period of time, at least you've built up a threshold where you can endure it Whereas before, your threshold would have been very low and you'll be shivering and uncomfortable much faster. So I encourage you to go out, get uncomfortable, be out in the cold, reap all its benefits, and then go right back inside. I don't encourage you to get the cookies and eggnog, but then go back inside, make sure you hydrate. That's another important thing about winter training, is you assume because you're not sweating as much that you're don't have to worry about hydration. You do. You absolutely do. When it's winter time, it's you can dehydrate just as easily as you do in the summertime, but it's not always as noticeable because you're not sweating as much. When you're out training outdoors, it doesn't mean you have to limit it to running or jogging or walking, right? Some of the best outdoor gyms you have are right in your own backyard or down at your park. You have trees, and like you did when you were a kid, just play on the trees, climb a little bit. And nothing will stimulate the muscles better than the grabbing and the climbing and the negotiating and the twisting of the body as you try to maneuver your way through a tree. And you can create all sorts of creative exercises while you're doing that as well. Remember, trees are your outdoor gyms in nature. When you're out hiking, scuttle up the rocks, climb the trees, just get your body moving in new and creative ways that you're not normally used to doing. Do it out in the cold, build up your tolerance for the cold, and really benefit from all that the cold has to offer. Burn those calories. And if you want more on this, you should look up Wim Hof. Wim Hof is a man who's done incredible feats in ice water and swimming in Siberian water. And I mean, he's incredible. And he's a freak. I mean, he's not normal, but there's a lot of data, scientific data they've learned from him being such an exceptional person that would apply to us. So that the field of data and what happens when you're cold goes much deeper than is the scope of this video. But on a more superficial level, I just want to say, don't be afraid of it. Go out, embrace it, feel the cold. You'll feel much better when you go back inside. So today we were doing some training in Cove Island Park in Stamford, Connecticut, which is an amazing place. You're right by the water, and the water's going to make it even colder. So if you really want to, put the pedal to the metal in terms of getting that frigid effect, go train by water. But it's a beautiful day, so we're out here enjoying it for short periods of time. And wherever you live, you can find a park, you can find a yard, you can find some place to go and take long walks and be out in the cold, and I encourage you to do so. So in this particular time with COVID, I know everybody's wrestling with how do you deal with this? How do you navigate it? And there are a lot of authorities saying stay indoors, right? But then there's data saying staying indoors is not necessarily good because sometimes the spread begins within a family that's inside all the time. So that's what I'm saying. Don't be afraid of the outdoors. Going out, look at it as medicinal. Going out and getting lots of oxygen, lots of vitamin D, lots of sunshine. Think of that as important as taking your supplements. Right? If you look at it from that point of view, then you go out and take your daily vitamin D bath. You take your daily oxygen bath, right? Just go out, absorb all that, bring it in. It does act medicinally and will help you, like with every other healthy option you make in this time of COVID, to keep you from manifesting major symptoms should you actually catch it. Stimulating your immune system is key and it's important, and we're going to create other content on that down the road very shortly. But being outdoors, getting fresh air, oxygen, vitamin D, very important. You go back inside, you stay hydrated, you eat clean, you take your supplements, you do everything you can to keep yourself as healthy as you possibly can during this time. More to come on Inner Athlete Training. Join us at innerathletetraining.com.